Today, I rise in opposition to House Bill 4500. Now, I doubt that there are people in here who would argue that harming a pregnant woman is horrible. And of course, we would want to protect not only pregnant women, but the future tiny people growing within them. But this bill goes too far. And despite being paved with allegedly good intentions, it brings with it intentions that include a set of unintended consequences, several of which have already been enumerated by the good gentleman from Grand Rapids and the wise woman from Clio. I stand here to offer 4 additional compelling reasons why this bill must be defeated. First, this bill allows for the maximum scoring of offense variable 9, which would automatically bring the number of victims of a crime from 1 to, at minimum, 2 victims, assuming that the pregnancy was a singleton. Scoring an automatic 10 points, and I quote directly from the bill language on page 2, lines 7 through 8, there were 2 to 9 victims who were placed in danger of physical injury or death. Because as lines 12 through 14 read, count each person who is placed in danger of physical injury or loss of life or property as a victim. For purposes of this section, an embryo or fetus must be counted as a person. Second, since this is a words business, and words and their meanings are important, you've heard me say that before, let's look at the definitions of embryo, fetus, and person. I'll start with person. According to dictionary.com, a person, noun, is identified as a human being, whether an adult or child. Now, the same reference defines a child as a person between birth and full growth. In both the dictionary and within the scientific community, an embryo is defined as a fertilized egg of a vertebrate that is fewer than 8 weeks gestation. And a fetus is the stage that is past 8 weeks gestation. It's important to note that in most cases, gender cannot even be determined prior to 16 weeks. And scientifically, no matter how romantic our notions of pregnancy and motherhood are, at the embryonic and fetal stages, we still have a group of cells, not yet a boy or girl child even. It is also during this time, during the gestational, embryonic, and fetal stages, 2 distinct stages, when many women don't even know they are pregnant themselves or how far along they might be, because it is during this time that there are few outward signs to the woman herself or to others that are clear indications of pregnancy. Even the one sign, temporary cessation of menses, that might indicate pregnancy is an unreliable indicator of pregnancy because it is still possible to bleed during the first few weeks or months of pregnancy. In fact, according to the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, 15 to 25% of women experience some degree of bleeding in the first trimester. Third, since pregnancy occurs inside the body, it is not possible to know whether or not any woman or girl of childbearing years, meaning between the onset of menses and the completion of menopause, is definitively pregnant during the embryonic and fetal gestational periods. House Bill 4500 would therefore suggest that all women between the onset of menses and the completion of menopause be treated as pregnant at all times in order for others outside of herself to avoid the possibility of harming or creating danger to the embryo or fetus that she might be carrying, as the National Advocates for Pregnant Women asserts. Now I want you all to look around. Here's a news flash of all the women inside this room right now, female legislators, staff, citizens in the gallery, folks out in the lobby. That is likely most of us. And this brings me to my 4th and final point, the question of this bill's constitutionality and therefore its legitimacy. to count each person who is placed in danger of physical injury or loss of life or property as a victim, and for purposes of this section, an embryo or fetus must be counted as a person, is the type of definition that permits and enshrines in statute an assumption that women are defined by their capacity for pregnancy. And this type of definition is not permissible in our system of constitutional democracy, which ensures that all persons have equal protection under the law. Through the provisions outlined in lines 12 through 14 of page 2 of House Bill 4500, pregnant women and likely pregnant women would be treated differently than men and then women who aren't pregnant or cannot be pregnant under this law, both in terms of both protections and prosecutions. Section 1 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution states, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privilege or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the laws." House Bill 4500 completely disregards the Constitution's promise that citizens are entitled to due process of law. Because this bill lacks a scienter requirement and is unacceptably vague and broad, it violates the constitutional guarantee of due process. This requirement specifies a perpetrator of a crime must have intended to commit the crime. And again, this points back to the question of how would one know for certain that a woman of childbearing years is carrying an embryo or a fetus, or whether a crime against her was the catalyst that caused a miscarriage, when again, according to the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, 10% of all pregnancies can result in miscarriage during the first trimester. A scienter requirement is usually necessary for a person to be convicted of an offense in criminal law. And when legislation fails to address intent, as House Bill 4500 does, a person may be prosecuted and punished for a crime that he or she did not intend to commit, when a lesser charge would not only be more just, but more logical, sensible, and constitutional. Now, there are also many supporters of this bill that have sincerely held religious beliefs on this matter. But let me remind all in this chamber what Article 4, Section 41 of the Michigan Constitution states. The legislature shall not diminish or enlarge the civil or political rights, privileges, and capacities of any person on account of his opinion or belief concerning matters of religion. This legislative space is not the arena for liturgical, ecclesiastical, or otherwise religiously dogmatic edicts and prescripts. The guide for us in this body is clear, and it is in the constitutions. And here in House Bill 4500, we have two areas in both the Constitution of the United States and in the Michigan Constitution where this legislation clearly violates. And honestly, I cannot believe that we are doing this again, aiming to enact legislation based upon emotions rather than logic, critical thinking, and its constitutionality. And it's on these grounds that I strongly urge a no vote.